on the News Channel 5 network. This is Open Line.
Well, good evening and welcome into Open Line. I'm Chuck Long, glad to be along with you for the next hour. One of my favorite hours is ahead. I know it's one of your favorite hours as well. Of course, on Open Line, we ask an expert often, and this is one of our favorites. We're going to be talking with attorney Kevin Kennedy. This is Ask an Expert. We're talking your legal questions this evening. So, whether you have legal questions that have to do with you, a particular instance that happened to you, occurred to you, a family member, this is the place that you can call, and this is the expert, Kevin Kennedy from
Good
Kennedy Law
to see
Firm.
you, Chuck, as always, and we're glad to be here tonight.
Absolutely.
And so we want to encourage you, if there's anything on your mind, jot down a little note and call in, and we'd love to take the opportunity to try to share with you and teach you something, and maybe it'll help you or your family members.
As I've told you many times, Kevin, it's always an education for me when you're here. There are the legal profession, it's multifaceted. Obviously, you have to have a broad knowledge of so many different areas.
For everyone,
and
yes.
You guys do that.
Well, you know, I look at it this way. If I really knew the answer and kept it to myself and didn't share it when you needed to hear it, I feel like I have robbed you, because just a few minutes with me would take a lot of anxiety, a lot of grief, a lot of worry, and so I want to share that and give it away, and that's just my human nature, and that's what we're going to try to do tonight.
Absolutely, and I know a lot of you are regular viewers, regular callers. You know the situation. All you have to do is call 737-7587. We'll get you on. We'll get as many calls as we possibly can in the next hour. You know, one of the things that I was looking through, these are some of the areas that we talked about last time that Kevin was here: personal injury, medical malpractice, police misconduct, employment discrimination, car accidents, truck accidents, bicycle, pedestrian accidents. You know, we're seeing more and more of those, and there's a lot of legal questions about those.
Well, the truth of the matter is we are living in a litigation society. So, do you drive defensively? Absolutely. You need to keep your eyes open. What does the reasonable man do? So, if he has this information, draw on it. That's why we train. The Army teaches train, train, train. Why? Because in the split second, we have to have some decision making, and many times just that little bit of knowledge will turn, and you say, please, Chuck, you don't have to. Chuck, will you step with me for a moment? And we protect you, and it's really good, and that's what an educated society would do. And if you're not sophisticated in the law, people will take advantage of you.
And do all the time.
They do every day.
You know, and another thing too, I'd just like to mention, we do have some new viewers, which you always welcome the new viewers. Kennedy Law Firm, you guys have been in business 35
plus years. I know it's even a shocker to me. I've spent my entire adult life, and so when I look back over, and you know, we've won lots of cases. We have stayed packed. The biggest shock, are you listening, Chuck? The biggest shock of Kevin Kennedy tonight is that I am so busy. I get to the office about 7. Normally, there is a minimum of 4 to 6 waiting every morning. And if I'm running a little late, drop your laundry, well, then they're packing in. And so they said, well, Kevin, why don't you schedule? Because the need is so great. If you had a problem tonight, I want you to try to get to me. And a few minutes with me will make a difference. I'm telling you, so many lawyers do an initial consultation free. So that little advice will go a long way and help you. Okay, well, maybe I should tell this censure. Are y'all taping me? Always assume that they are taping you. And if they are taping you, believe me, it's not in your best interest. They're making preparation to go against you. And that old famous saying, loose lips, people want to talk, they want to explain. Hey, I don't have anything to hide. That's 50 years ago, Chuck.
Right.
We're in the day where everybody has a tape recorder and a phone. Remember this, the microphone is always on and the camera is always on.
And people don't realize that. I'm going to ask you, we just saw a report on the news right before we went on here at Channel 5, all about forced self-incrimination. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to ask you about that. We're going to go to our lines right now, though. Once again, if you're just tuning in, it's Ask an Expert. We are talking about your legal questions, your comments. This is the expert, Kevin Kennedy. So make sure you get online with us as quickly as possible. 737-7587 is that number on your screen to call. Right now, though, here we go. Lucy's on the line with us. Lucy, good evening. You are the first caller. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin Kennedy?
Okay, I've got a question, but first I'm going to make a comment. You know, I know y'all, I'll speak for myself, but, you know, we were all young once, and a lot of times we had to be protected from ourselves if we acted like a fool.
Hello, come in. You're telling the truth. Go on.
So what I want to talk about is in the case with the police officer and the young woman that ran into him, and she had taken the car keys from her aunt or something. I was told by my insurance company almost 40 years that regardless if it's a family member or not, and even if I said they stole the car, it has my name on it. That's just like leaving a gun in a car. And if they have an accident, I am the sole one liable. So can you explain how that works, Mr. Kennedy? And thank you for taking my call.
And thank you for the question. It's a great one. So the more property you own, whether it's personal property or real property, you carry the liability and the responsibility with it. So if you have guns in your home, they should be locked. They should not be around where children could get them. And if you did and someone was hurt or killed, you're going to hold some financial responsibility. So in our cars, if I allow Chuck, yeah, sure, Chuck, there's the car, take off anytime. Chuck has an accident, they're going to sue Chuck. They're also going to sue the owner of that vehicle. So many people say, well, you know, I'd rather my child drive the car and let everybody come with my child. Well, your child might be the most responsible. But if there is a wreck, all the other children's parents are looking to who to pay their medical bills. It's very serious. And if you're willing to take that risk and you've got insurance and your child is responsible, then you're making an informative decision to let mine drive to the dance. On the converse, if you load the car up, you're taking on that. So you might just say, my dad says we've got to meet you there. My dad won't let all of you ride in our car. And that's probably some very, very good advice.
Well, that's terrific. So informed decision, that's what it's all about.
Yes,
you know.
On whatever we do, lawyers' jobs are to explain to their clients, these are what the options are, then you make the decision. So many guys, they come back and say, well, my lawyer didn't tell me this, Kevin. I wasn't aware of that. Then take this proactive approach and ask some questions. What are the questions we ask? Simple. Who, what, when, where, and how. Just like everyday average people, but move and ask those. And so sometimes if you didn't feel good about a situation, that's the extrasensory perception that kicks in. This guy's not really treating me fair. He's trying to pin me in. If he's trying to pin me in, does that give an alarm going off that he is taping me? And they said, well, you said yesterday, Chuck, this. Excuse me, I don't recall telling you this. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Not bad.
All right. Absolutely great advice. Lucy, we appreciate that.
Thank you, Lucy.
Comment and the question. All right, we're going right back to our lines right now. Mimi is on the line with us. Mimi, good evening. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Absolutely great advice. Lucy, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Can you hear us, Mimi?
I'm here.
Okay. Mimi, you may need to move a little from your television. I can hear it there in the background, so it may be hard for you to hear us. But if you do have that question or comment, just go right ahead.
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
You're on.
Okay.
So what is your question, Mimi?
My question is, I live in Nashville, been living here all my life, and it's like the Mexicans is taking over, and our job is saying that they can't say nothing to them about talking, but they can say something to us about talking.
Well, and again, that's just, we have a busy city, and that is one of those situations, so absolutely.
And the truth of the matter is, it's going to get busier and busier, and why is that? Population. Tennessee is a popular place in the nation. We see people moving here all the time from all over this nation. Why? Because they feel like jobs are more plentiful. It's a better quality of life. So it's a unique problem, and if everyone was leaving, you'd say, hey, what's going on? So thank you for your questions and comments.
All right, now, like I said, the line's getting really busy. If you are just tuning in, though, and you do have a legal question, you have a comment, you feel like you've been wronged, and you're wondering where do you turn, what's the next step, what should you do, this is a great place that you can ask that question here on Open Line. We are talking and taking your legal questions throughout the evening. D'Angelo is on the line with us right now. D'Angelo, thank you for calling in. Do you have a question or a comment? Are you with us, D'Angelo? All right. D'Angelo, can you hear us? All right. I think we lost D'Angelo. D'Angelo, if you can't hear us, you just go right ahead, call right back. We're going right back to the lines right now. Marcia is on the line with us. Marcia, good evening. Do you have a question or a comment?
I do, Chuck. I'll tell you, you had some problems with your phone lines because I was getting some sort of a pre-recorded message about call forwarding or something.
Okay, well, we're glad you got through.
Absolutely. Good to know.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
So, okay, I called last month, and Mr. Kennedy may remember about being evicted after I gave notice that I was not going to renew my lease.
Yes.
And my having lived there for a long time under different owners and not having these kinds of issues and them not doing repairs and then turning around after I left and not only refusing to refund my maintenance, my security deposit, but sending me a bill for all of the things that they didn't do and telling me if I didn't pay it, they were threatening me with collections. That's been over a month now.
Wow.
I haven't heard from any collection agencies or anything like that. So what legal options do I have? You told me that, get everything in writing, and I've had all of that. I've taken all of that advice. I wasn't sure you understood the question at the time, but what are my options at this point?
Well, you've always got some options and we evaluate what resources are available to you. The Tennessee Real Estate Commission has people that you can call and say, look, the landlord is ripping me off. We're seeing a wave of this all over. Why? Because so many people are coming. And what do they want to do? They want to put you out. Why? We're paying our rent because they can charge more rent. If there's any problems, we see it. So, yes, you can go and read up on the Tennessee Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. You can call Building and Codes, and if there are things that they are not fixing, they have all kinds of powers that they can deal. And then, ultimately, nobody wants to stay in court all the time. I would try to call that Tennessee Real Estate Commission if you have to file a complaint. Many times, people don't want to deal with these complaints because it jeopardizes their livelihood. So that's what I would suggest that you consider. If those are exhausted, then always try to hire your lawyer. And many times a lawyer may just write a letter and that corrects everything. It's a gentle nudge. Sometimes it's a little harder.
All right, Marcia, we do appreciate you calling in again. And again, great help, great advice right there, Kevin. So that's, I know, appreciated from Marcia.
And she's doing great. She's hearing document, because if you ever get to the right people, they say, well, do you have any proof? That's going to come from whoever's investigating your claims.
All right, great to know. Okay, right back to the lines. Judy is on the line with us. Judy, all right, well, you are up. Do you have a question or a comment this evening?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Judy.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Okay, hi. Thank you both for being there.
Sure.
I'd like to know what is the statute of limitation on a purchase and sale agreement for a home when it's forgery on the document? Forgeries on the document.
Okay, well, we'll talk about 2 or 3 things. 2 things happen. One, it's a civil liability. And if it's a breach of contract because of fraud, that would be a 6-year statute of limitations. Number 2, if it is a crime and someone forged your name, that can be prosecuted by the state of Tennessee. It is a crime against the state. Not only you're really the victim, but that's why we have district attorneys and that's why we have Tennessee Code annotated statutes that are against it. It is against public policy, and that's what our laws reflect, when someone is being deceptive and they try to cheat you. Against public policy. So if they did that and you can prove it, you say, well, Kev, how are we going to prove it? You can lay this signature down, and if it's obvious, the district attorney can prosecute. They will bring in a detective and he'll say, we'd like to question you, and those guys say, well, I'm not going to make any statements. And then, of course, when it gets down to the nitty-gritty and you really got a slick one, he's got the best lawyers. You can always take this note and take them to an expert, and he'll charge you a fee, and he can say the same person wrote this, or these are clearly not the same person. This is a forgery. And whoever passed it, they can also be charged with passing a forged instrument. Forging is 1, passing a forged instrument is 2.
Absolutely. Okay, we appreciate that call, Judy. Right back to the lines right now. So Lewis is on the line with us. Lewis, we're glad that you've called in this evening. What is your question?
Dealing with malfeasance in the court.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, have you got a specific question? Go right ahead with it.
Okay, my name is Louis Marshall from Clarksville.
Hello, Louis.
Hello.
I'm glad
How
to
you
hear
doing?
you. Go ahead with your question, Louis.
Yes, sir. The question is, if your case has been nullied by the judge and by the court, right?
Yes.
Can the judge, 3 years and 7 months later, add a financial cost to it after the case has been bored by the attorney that's down in the district attorney's office? But the question is, if the case has been nullied by the court, dismissed, agreement with the state, a voluntary dismissal, and can the judge, after 3 years and 7 months, bring the case back in court without due process and add court costs and cause you to be incarcerated?
Wow. Well, first off, there's an old adage, the judge is the boss. He can do almost anything. Is it legal? Is it illegal? If it's not legal, it can be appealed, and the Court of Appeals can correct it. I want to make one distinction, and thank you, Louis, for calling. Nollied is short for nolli prosecuta, and really what that means is the district attorney has determined not to prosecute the case. So it's a little different than dismissal, and it's a total dismissal. In civil cases, they can dismiss with prejudice or without prejudice. If it's dismissed without prejudice, you can refile that suit within the statute of limitation. So many times we will ask for an absolute dismissal, and that is clear, and it's a little different than a nollie. Many times they'll nollie the case, it'll be laying around for a year or two, and if you got in trouble again, they say, well, you know, we nollied that last domestic assault, and Chuck is out of control. Bring the old charge and the new charge. Let him face both of them now. We tried to cut him a break, but he was too hard-headed. And so that's a great question. I've shared with you the best that I could on that, Louis, and thank you again for calling.
Absolutely. And once again, Kevin, so many times someone calls in with a question for themselves.
Yes.
It actually helps a lot of people because a lot of people kind of have that same.
You got to hear this. We were in discussions, and this one lawyer said, that statute is run. Is it 1 year or is it 1 year and a day that you have? It's a good question. Well, the lawyers are research. Under my interpretation, the 1 year would go from year to year, April 20th to April 20th. Well, then you can bluff. Chuck says, well, you can take your chance, but if you miscalculate, are you hearing me?
Right.
Well, then you could even have the judge, here's the law, lay it out, and the judge can say, I'm going to agree with it. And you say, but judge, here's the law. Well, if you don't like it, appeal it. Just like we also had recently where a guy, here you can't landlock anyone. You can't do it. Well, this guy builds a building right in the road that's on this private property. Well, and he said, if you don't like it, sue me. Well, that creates problems. There's so much that goes on. People say, well, I don't really have the resources, the time, the energy. I'm out of state. So you understand, even though it's not legal, people do it, and judges do make mistakes, and that's why we appeal it.
Absolutely, but like you say, that judge has that final.
He's got the word. He said, I don't agree with you. Judge, we've got 5 witnesses. Well, I don't think they're credible.
There you go. All right. We appreciate the calls. Again, if you are just tuning in, you are watching Open Line. We are talking all about the law, your legal questions. If you feel like you've been wronged, make sure you get on the line with us and get those questions as quickly as possible. We'll take a short break, then Open Line continues.